don't, right? But that's human nature. We don't agree on everything. And the only two things that I really like about George is, one, he stood up at the referendum and was very outspoken about protecting the union, and I'm a unionist, so I kind of like that. And the other thing is a new thing, which I quite like, and that's the way he pronounces Ukrainians. Either George is just inventing words, or I've been saying Ukrainians incorrectly for my whole adult life.
Well, going back to Starmer then, his behavior is extremely inappropriate in many areas of life, and we've interviewed several survivors of grooming gangs on this channel, heard absolute horror stories of what these young women went through, teenagers when it happened to them, just kids. And yet he voted against the investigation into the grooming gangs back in January, thus enabling this criminal apparatus. I mean, one of the girls that we interviewed, they were transporting her. The orders were coming from the prison system. They were continuing to run the operation from the prison system. And the groomers got slaps on the wrist. They come out, go back to their families who accept them, because they just look down on these white teenage girls with mini skirts on who are getting drunk as if they deserve it. As if they deserve it. So Keir Starmer loves these people. He's enabling these people. He's protecting these people. You know, we had Raja Mir on, who said it's all about the votes. Doesn't want to disrupt relations, race relations in these communities. Keep the votes flowing. Meanwhile, enabling the R-wording of young girls in this country on an industrial scale. It's absolutely obscene. And Maggie Oliver has been a friend of the channel for over 5 years, who broke a lot of this. She said to us that whatever party gets in control, the other parties just pick on them and weaponize them for not doing anything about it. But as soon as any of the other parties get in control, they just say the same thing. We apologize. Changes have been made. This isn't going to happen in the future, but nothing ever changes.
No, the only thing that changes is the colour of the rosette, Shaun. That seems to be the most disappointing thing for me.
It's obscene that this is being allowed to happen to so many girls, and these politicians are not standing up. I mean, you think the justice system would be to protect the kids and the women?
Well,
it's not.
There's a bit of a strange fact about my life. I am a massive Rangers fan, and that 10 years ago, I was quite publicly campaigning to move on an old board that were controlling Rangers at the time, and that campaign lasted about 3 years and was ultimately successful. But quite an unusual thing about me is, when I was a child, I played football for Celtic Boys Club. The Celtic Boys Club, most people north of the border will be well aware of this, are currently going through a class action lawsuit because of the amount of, there's 9, I think, different individuals from the Boys Club who have been found guilty in a court of law for sexually abusing young boys. And I was there. I was in the middle of it, and thank God, just touch wood, that I was safe from it. But when you grow up and these stories start coming out and you think back, you think of the situations, I was just lucky. That was all. So I've got a particular concern about the safety of children. So it's a thing that's close to my heart. And I've been a youth football coach as a volunteer for 16 years, and I started my own club about 9 years ago. And the things that are in place to safeguard kids are still not good enough. We use the Scottish Football Association's child protection guidelines as a minimum and a starting point for our club. And if we see we want to raise the bar on any particular thing, then I'll do so. And I think the amount of people that have protected paedophiles through all different things, the grooming gangs, through sport, through boys' brigades, through childcare settings across the nation, is absolutely despicable. I'm trying to get into Holyrood in 2026 as an MSP, and I'll make it one of the things that I would do, not to win votes, because I think it's the right thing to do, is uncover as much of this as possible and hold them accountable. Anybody who'd done these things or protected these people, they need publicly outed, and then society will decide for itself what it does with them after that. But it's a thing that sickens me, because of my close connections, and just a lucky boy that I wasn't a victim myself, but I do know people that half the team that I played in were abused. So it's a topic that is very close to my heart, and something that society just needs to out every single last person that was either involved or covered it up, and that is regardless of their religion or their skin colour or their nationality, because yet there are certain demographics and in certain cases, and it's massive tens or hundreds of thousands we're talking about here. And there's a friend of mine, a guy called Alex Kearney, he runs Spartan Child Protection Group. They do these paedophile hunter things and things like that. And you just spend 10 minutes with this guy, and you think you've got an idea of how bad it is, and you don't. As a normal person, we don't, and it's sickening. And we're sort of dragging the conversation away from topics. So I do apologise, but
no, take your time. You're fine. You're fine.
It's just a horrible aspect of British life that so many people in our establishment, and that'll be politicians, civil servants, judges, lawyers, etc., 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 who have this fascination for. I'm trying to watch the words that I use. I don't want to get your video pulled, but PDF is a safe way of saying it. It's just outrageous, and the covering up and the protecting of each other. They all need outed, even if you were not part of it. By not pursuing them, you are actually part of it. My rant is over. I beg your pardon.
No, well said, Craig. I've got a 1.5-year-old baby here, baby Ziggy, and it's horrifying for me and my partner. We interview so many survivors, and they seem to be especially embedded the higher up you go into society. For some reason, the elites have a particular propensity for these things, whether it's no empathy, psychopaths, reptilian consciousness, whatever it is. It just seems to be the way society is structured, and the legal system. When they do get reported, the chances of them getting sent down are minimal, and when they do get sentenced, the sentences are just absolutely pathetic, especially with the Catholic priest.
Yeah. Listen, it just reminded me there of a video I done 2 or 3 days ago. It was Generic the Tory that highlighted it, and I done a video on it. The case it was a historical case involving a lot of Pakistani men, but 3 of them went to court at the same time. 2 of them, when it came to court, had absconded, and the theory was they'd went abroad. So when he was handing down the sentences, this Muslim judge said that the only one that was there that was to face the music got a lower sentence for drugging and sexually abusing a then 13-year-old girl. He reduced his sentence to 6.5 years based on, amongst other things, that he is now involved in his local mosque. And you think, what? No, the guy drugged and abused a 13-year-old girl twice. What you've done after that, really, you're not a better person. You're still that person. You might just hang about in different places. And somebody said to me, well, that guy should never stand in a judge on a trial with another Muslim. And I said, no, stop a minute. He's shown a sectarian way of thinking. So what it is, if you're not a Muslim, you're going to get a higher sentence. So it's not only that he shouldn't be taking cases that are, trying Muslim people. He shouldn't be taking cases at all, because he's already shown that he hands out his justice unfairly. And that's the type of society, unfortunately, we've developed in the United Kingdom. And not that long ago, Shaun, I believed that Britain was a great place. And when you heard about all this cover-ups and sleaze and debauchery and bribes and backhanders, that it was alien to us. That was other countries. But I was wrong, and unfortunately, widely wrong. Whereas bad, and we've got a load of people up in Scotland who think getting an independent Scotland would answer all these ills, because they actually believe that corruption and all this stuff stops the minute you get to Gretna Green, and anything north of that is a world of paradise, completely ignoring the fact that the only political party of any size to be subject to a full investigation at their corruption was the Scottish National Party. So it's a whole British thing. It's not just Westminster. It's not just England. It's horrible, and that unfortunately is the society we live in. It's a disgrace.
And you touched earlier on the Southport stabber, and my friend Andrew Gold has done some excellent work on Keir Starmer's involvement with the parents of the stabber. And have you looked into that side of things?
And something that, you see, I said about 2 days in, when we were saying it's not terror linked, I done a video and got slaughtered for it. And I said, well, hold on a minute. The chief of police in the Merseyside Police has just had a press conference and thanked the anti-terror police for their support up until now and their continued help in investigation. And I was like, well, hold on a minute. You've been telling us for 2 days there's no terror link. The anti-terror folk would have turned up and took one look at it and said, no terror here, and went back to what they're good at, looking for terrorists. So I've lost my train of thought now. So, you know, we kind of, again, it's just talking nonsense and doing it right in front of our faces and us wanting to accept it. We need to just be more open-minded on it. I forgot what your question was, Shaun. I get distracted there again.
Yeah. We were talking about the Southport situation, and Kier went up to Southport.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, I remember you were asking about the connections between the parents. I've got a sort of contrary understanding of this, which will probably not be the same as your friends. When I dug into this, there was a claim made that Keir Starmer somehow allowed them to come into the country, and there was some connection to an uncle who's still in the government. But at that time, the people who were carrying out the slaughtering and the genocide, let's call them the baddies. And the suggestion was Rudy Cabana's dad was one of the baddies, and Keir Starmer protected him and helped him get to the UK. Well, if the uncle is still in is actually a government minister right now, there's been an overthrown government. So we have the goodies in now. And these parties in Africa tend to be very tribal. So you would imagine if you were in one party, all your family would be connected to that party because it's very tribal, and the genocide was tribal. So that sort of contradicts this narrative that's been pushed that he protected them and Rudy Cabana's father committed genocide, because Rudy Cabana's uncle is in government just now in the party that wasn't committing genocide. So I might be wrong with that one, but that's kind of where my investigations ended up on that one.
It's just bizarre that he's even linked to them in the first place, just as it's equally bizarre that his properties are getting attacked by this kid on the screen.
Yeah.
And you've done research into DI and unfettered immigration and things like that on your channel. What's your present viewpoints on those?
DAI is the biggest con, possibly second to the strive for net zero, in my opinion. If we are in a society that unfairly rewards certain demographics of jobs, then that's easy sorted. And every big business has an HR department. Every part of the government has got HR departments. We don't need another department to do something that an HR department could do, which is simply have a look at the demographic of employees and make sure it kind of reflects society. But I would rather be that people were given jobs on the best person for the job. So by creating a DEI, you're actually creating racism and sectarianism in itself, because you're actually now saying, well, it doesn't really matter how good you are for the job. You were going to, or sex or gender, these things all get taken into account with DEI. And it's just a farce. And like most things, like I've got my opinions on immigration so high because immigration is now an industry and DEI is now an industry. And when you have an industry and it creates millionaires and billionaires, people are very reluctant to stop those industries. And I believe that's why we have got 28 years of government who have took power by claiming that they're going to reduce immigration, and none of them's done it. Now, I don't believe that they don't want to. I believe that they can't, and they're not allowed to. Because if we consider that nobody who's profited out of immigration, whether it be a hotelier, people, even counselling, people clothing these people giving, when they come out the hotels, they get flats fully furnished. So there's businesses that only deal with furnishing immigrant houses, which is bonkers. We've got lawyers and legal companies who only deal in protecting asylum seekers. So we've got a full industry now. And if we're going to consider that nobody who's made a single penny out of these doesn't donate money to a person or a party, then we're completely naive. And that's why I believe these industries still exist, because they can't stop existing, because the amount of people making lots of money, it works its way back to the decision makers. And DEI, I believe, is no different. We've now created this whole industry. You could probably go to university and study to be a DEI specialist, for God's sake. And the whole thing just snowballs, and more people make money, and they don't want to stop their income, and we end up with insanity. And that's where society is just now.
Yeah, you've nailed it there. Follow the money, because I'm trying to contemplate the root causes. And I think a lot of it goes back to when Tony Blair and George Bush told the world Saddam had weapons of mass destruction. They made trillions for the likes of Dick Cheney, Halliburton, bombing the poorest countries in the world. Then they offered the locals safe refuge to our countries to become our slave worker force. And then you get, all the problems of assimilation. And even when the problems kick off, everyone you put into prison, £60,000 a year to house them, Serco contract, G4S contract, hundreds of millions housing the unfettered immigrants in hotels and giving them supplies, etc. It doesn't matter what happens or what they do, they just make money from every single angle. So no wonder they don't want to check. They want the status quo.
I've spoke at 4 political rallies. 2 in Glasgow, 1 in Edinburgh, and 1 recently in Manchester. And in 3 of those occasions, I was, there was counter rallies appeared, all funded by, not all funded, but a lot of funding from and support from trade unions. And this one really gets on my goat, because if you're a trade union, your single biggest issue should be protecting the British worker, the people already here in jobs. So why would a trade union scream, refugees welcome here, open it up, bring in more immigrants in? When you do that, it's going to have one effect on the wage of the current worker, because there's more people to do the job. Then wages certainly don't go up, and in some instances they come down. And that's always bothered me as to why, what's the fascination there? And I'll guarantee you, even if somebody eventually finds out, that will be money related as well, because it's kind of what drives the world.
Yeah, I'm not a Marxist, but I have read many political texts, including Das Kapital, and he documents, the classic battle of the capitalists trying to get the wage down so they can make more money. And by overwhelming the country with a supply of foreign labor, they're crushing the local wage and making themselves billions in the process of doing this.
And we're getting this detail, but the one other thing that really hit home to me when I figured this one out, somebody put a stat in front of me that if we had instant remigration of people who are here illegally, not asylum seekers that are genuinely here, because they're life in danger, or here because they are great scientists and immigrants in that way, but every single illegal immigrant would be like millions gone, right? And apparently there would be 250,000 vacant properties in London alone. Now, you imagine what would happen to the value of all the properties if suddenly you had 250,000 empty ones. It's not going to go north, it's going to go south. And then you consider, well, who would lose out there? Well, it would be the people that own all the properties and people who have massive portfolios of property. You bet your bottom dollar, they don't want that. And that's why even Reform you would think would be the one party that would want to be remigrating everybody. But Nigel Farage has already been in record and saying we're never going to deport anybody. We'll try and stop the ones coming. That's what we kind of want to do. But we're not going to deport the ones that are already here. And you think, well, have you been nobbled now? Because it makes sense. Scotland has got a national housing crisis. The government told us that last year. The UK as a whole probably not far behind. Yet we've got the Scottish government demanding that they look after immigration for Scotland because they want it to be even easier to come here. You think, well, 6 months ago you told us we've no houses. And if the more pressure you put on houses, guess what? The value goes up, like any commodity. And again, you go, well, it's just down to pounds, shillings and pence. And when you factor all these things in, is it any wonder that we've had 28 years of governments tell us they're going to bring down migration and do bugger all about it? I'm trying to figure out what that's got to do with Keir Starmer and petrol bombing, but we've digressed a bit, Shaun.
Folks, if you've got any final questions for Craig about Keir Starmer and the alleged male escort who has allegedly attacked several of Starmer's properties, please put them in the chat. But you're quite right, the increased pressure on housing prices by keeping all these people in the country keeps the landlords wealthy, the elites wealthy, the banking interests wealthy, and it prevents our young people who are already saddled in debt from university from leaving their parents' homes. It's absolutely obscene. The whole system is designed so that the wealthy just keep getting richer and squeezing the life out of the rest of us with all kinds of taxes and nonsense. And what can people look forward to on your channel in the coming days?
What am I working on? I've just put out one just as we were starting this video. Is Starmer throwing the fishermen under the bus now and giving the EU access to our fishing areas for another 12 years? And in return, it seems we've got two things. We might be able to get go in the EU queue when we go abroad at passport control, which will save us 15 minutes in our holiday. And the way they've worded it's fantastic. They were trying to allow the young people easier movement round about Europe. And the EU have said they will investigate that or they will research that. So what we've gave them is a concrete, there you go, you can come and fish here for another 12 years. But what we're getting back are sort of maybes and possibles. So I've got that. I've just put out a video, an hour's video on with an interview with a lady who is a real victim of a judiciary system up here with corruption and all this nonsense, who is basically her and her partner both bankrupted purely through the greed of other individuals. And it certainly looks as if corruption within even our judiciary system in Scotland, which is a horrific thing to admit as a Scottish person. I've got another guy who's trying to be debarred because he is a Jewish person who stands up for himself, and he's been told to try to take his ability to work as a lawyer off him, and that case has been heard on Wednesday. I'll have him on the programme short after, and then just the usual 10-minute moans I do, which are very current. So whatever comes up in the news today, I tend to do a quick 10-minute reaction to that. So, but listen, thanks very much for allowing me your platform, Shaun. I've been an admirer of your channel for a while.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for coming on. You got a few questions come in. Anna wants to know,
okay,
who do you think is lined up allegedly to replace Starmer?
I have no idea, but I hope it's no his foreign secretary. In fact, there's nobody in the cabinet. This is the thing, right? When you look at the cabinet of the United Kingdom government, who's there? Every single one of them is absolutely crackers. Do you know what I mean? We've got a foreign secretary that thinks Henry VIII came before Henry VII, right? The man's insane. So I don't know. I mean, it as well just no having a prime minister than any of the candidates that's there. I certainly can't see anybody in the cabinet that would be. You would think, oh, that's good. That'd make a good prime minister. There's nobody there. I mean, you consider we're only trying to find 650 people to fill Westminster and 130 to fill Holyrood. Yet there's not that many sensible people out that 700 or 800 people. It's a kind of bad state of affairs for the nation of United Kingdom that's the best we can do. And if that's the best we could do, we're in the worst place than I thought.
Sadly, Anna, it seems that only the psychopaths and people who are compromised are allowed to rise to the top, and they are expendable. So periodically, we get to throw our rotten apples and carrots and turnips at one of them and rejoice. But then another one is just brought in to continue the exact same agenda, which is quite a bleak outlook, but nevertheless. Wendy wants to know, is Starmer a loose cannon and is Britain in crisis?
I think he tries not to be a loose cannon. I think this case, whenever we find out the reality of it, will give us a better barometer than that. But this is something I learned with my previous campaign I touched on with the Rangers Football Club thing, Shaun. See, when these people are in power, often their downfall is their success. Because what they think is, they think they're better than they are, and they believe that they're invincible and they'll never get caught. And that kind of leads to their downfall in many ways. And I think Starmer's probably, I mean, let's face it, forgetting the turnout, Labour did really swing the seats in at Westminster from one direction to another. And I remember commenting on it the next day when the results were verified. And I said, isn't it bizarre that we've had a massive political swing in our country where people were evidently are really unhappy with a sitting government, yet our streets and our capitals are not full of people celebrating here? Now, if that had happened in any other country, in any other Western country, where you had such a swing from right to left and from one party to another, people would be taken to the streets with flags and banners. There was nothing. All we knew, we were just getting a bad government. And the hope, I think, of the country was they'll be slightly better and not as bad as the last one. So they were going to fail from day one. They're terrible. But I think they would believe their own hype. They will think, wow, we've got so much of a majority in Westminster now, that we can basically do what we want. We're invincible, we're unbeatable. And that tends to lead to doing stupid things, making mistakes, and inevitably your downfall. And I hope that happens, to be perfectly honest with you.
Well said. Katz, how can we direct youth to more positive activism and sway them away from the all that glitters isn't gold?
Well, I've been working with young people for 16 years as a volunteer football coach, and I think we don't give them the credit that they're due. There are a lot of crackpots. There's a lot of dafties out there that are kids, right? But there was dafties there when I was kids. But there are a lot of good, intelligent ones. And what we need to do is we need to talk to them, and we need to educate them, and we need to, give them their standards back and teach them wrong from right. And it's not acceptable to be walking about the streets with knives. The knife crime in this country is ridiculous, with another kid, 15 or 16-year-old, murdered on a beach in Scotland in a beautiful little town called Troon just 24, 48 hours ago. And as it turns out, I've got a connection. I'm not a best friend or anything, but a connection to the poor boy's grandfather. And the knife crime's ridiculous. So we need to educate our people better. And if that's not going to happen overnight with the educators that we've got, then us as adults, we need to take responsibility for that. And we all are in contact with young people through whatever means. And we just need to educate them a bit and give them morals and give them guidance and give them something to aim for and drive for. We need to, Scotland, about 20 to 25% of Scottish young adults have never contributed to income tax or NI because they don't work. We kind of need to change that. We need to inspire them to get up off their ass. We don't have a skill shortage in Scotland. That means we need to bring people into Scotland to fill jobs. We have a get up off your ass problem in Scotland where not enough people are doing that. So, that's something that we could do to help. And if kids have got a future and they've got, an idea that they can maybe get on the property ladder and get up off their ass and do stuff, then, they will by default be better directed. And I think we owe it to our younger generation. You've already said you've got an 18-month-old in your family now, and congratulations there, Shaun. And we all want to make it a bit better for them. So we need to give them positive goals to achieve. And you can't really blame them if they think, well, I'm never going to own a property. Scottish government give me everything free if I don't work. Well, what's the point? We don't infuse them. We need to do that. I'm a great believer in that, and hopefully the next generation can make a better game of it than we are.
Craig, we salute you for your authenticity, and thank you for spending so much time with us. Craig's channel link is in the description box. It's in the live chat. I've just put it in. It's also going to be in the pinned comment. So people, please go and sub to Craig. He's, one of the ones who was at the forefront of this story we've been reporting on about Keir Starmer and the male escort, where as the mainstream media are all in lockstep. We're not hearing a single peep out of them, which just adds to our suspiciousness that something untoward has actually happened here. So if there's anything you'd like to say in conclusion, Craig, before we let you go.
Oh, just thanks for giving me a platform, Shaun, and I've no doubt I'll get some extra views and subscribers because your channel's massive in comparison to mine. I saw your own personal story. I saw that in a podcast many months ago, and hat off to you for becoming the person you have after having so much against you and what you've done. So, yeah, well done, mate, and all the best to you. And as I always say at the end of all my podcasts, have a great day. Cheery, bye now.
Thanks, Greg. And if there's anything we can do for you, you just let us know. All right. Cheers, my friend. Take care. Thanks. Bye. What a phenomenal guest, folks. I thought we were just going to be on for about 20 minutes and to cover the story, but, you know, the amount of different things that Craig is covering right now really dovetails with our own mission on this channel. And I would love to do more collaborations with him in the future. So we had Juliette Bryant premiering this morning, Epstein Survivor. If you missed it, it was a 90 minutes long podcast. We've got Gloria Masters back for part 2 tonight. Phenomenal guest, Survivor at 8 p.m. And then tomorrow we've got Rachel, 8 p.m., Survivor of Mum's Boyfriend at age 10. And then on the 24th, we've got Seth, who was recently on Soft White Underbelly, childhood survivor. We possibly got Epstein's niece coming on, Anya Wick. That one is still pending, but loads of content coming up. I think Ron's going to be covering more Diddy trial stuff today. So hope to see some of you in some of our next streams. So much love and respect wherever you are in the world. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for subscribing to Craig. Send him some love from here when you go over there, and maybe that will incentivize him to come back.